Hi everyone! I'm Celeste. If you missed it last time on my channel introduction, this is an unscripted video where I talk about an anime that I feel like has influenced me in some way. Not all of them will be good, not all of them will be bad. It's just kind of different things that I want to talk about. So we'll get right into it. I will admit that I'm going to give spoilers for Season 1 of Dandadan, but I am not going to talk about Season 2 currently as it is still airing. And I want to give people time to catch up. So for those that have decided to live like Patrick Star, I will give a brief and very badly done rundown of what the show is about. Basically, we follow Okarun and Momo. Okarun is kind of obsessed with UAPs. He expresses eventually that the reason is because he figured that if anyone was going to be his friend ever, that it would be an alien because he couldn't make actual friends. Momo grew up with her grandmother, who is a spirit medium, so she's always believed in ghosts. They end up daring each other basically to go and prove that the others' beliefs are real. And spoiler, obviously, both of them are. Okarun ends up meeting Turbo Granny, which is a yokai that is prevalent in Japanese culture, apparently, because it's in multiple anime. There's the Mob Psycho one that has Turbo Granny too. But he ends up getting possessed by Turbo Granny while Momo ends up being kidnapped by aliens who want to use her to reproduce. It sounds silly, and it is, but they do it so well. So that's pretty much what it comes down to, and they end up meeting other people. I will go into them a little bit later. I will also go more into Turbo Granny after we get more into what I'm talking about. But, so some background for me is that I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z because it came on before Sailor Moon, and I want to watch Sailor Moon. I didn't specifically care for it growing up because, I wasn't into the big burly guys punching each other because they think it's fun. It was enjoyable, but, not in the same way as some of the other anime. I love Trigun too, but obviously that was on Adult Swim, and it hit differently, and they're very different shows. But I ended up watching One Piece because of how ridiculous the concepts were, and I found that more enjoyable just because it's silly. I feel like that's part of why I like Sailor Moon too, though, because it's just kind of silly with the monsters, although the actual story itself can sometimes be grounded, and their issues can be grounded, and this show does that too. They have grounded issues. Okarun literally wants to talk to Momo because he thinks she's interested in UAPs, and he's like, oh, maybe I can make a friend. And, it's... Their romance kind of reminds me of Dress Up Darling, too. So, it's kind of more of a romance with a shonen cover instead of a shonen that just happens to have, romance in the background. I don't know if that makes sense to everybody. But it's very obvious that both the main characters like each other, but they're still teenagers, and they're not over that awkward phase of, oh, can I tell them how I feel? Momo's friends help with that a lot, and they're absolutely amazing characters. And it's very obvious to them that Momo has a thing for Okarun. The other thing is that Okarun's name is not actually Okarun, obviously. His name is Kin Takakura. It is the same name as an actor that Momo has a crush on, so she refuses to call Okarun by his actual name. And if anyone does, she kind of flips out. So the first characters obviously that you meet are Momo and Okaroon. Momo had a breakup with her boyfriend. She sees Okaroon getting picked on. She goes and basically gets them, like the people bullying Okaroon, to bug off. And Okaroon misunderstands what's going on and thinks that she's interested in UAPs. And thus does the whole "I dare you to go to such and such" start. So Turbo Granny ends up possessing him, and because Momo is in a situation where she would get hurt, I feel like that's the reason Turbo Granny's powers worked the way it did. Okaroon ends up coming into a phone. So Turbo Granny basically exists to protect girls that would be harmed in the tunnel that she haunts. And so, yeah, it makes sense that the power would work the way it does. Usually, Okaroon uses it to protect Momo. He wants to help people, the power of friendship and everything, but a lot of it is specifically Momo. Turbo Granny ends up in the body of a lucky cat, so you can see her down at the bottom of the image, being all angry that I'm even here. And then you have Psycho, who is Momo's grandmother. Again, she is a spirit medium. She is the one that ends up moving Turbo Granny into the cat. But unfortunately, in the process of getting Turbo Granny's powers, Okaroon ends up losing bits of himself physically that they have to get back. In the process, there is someone that ends up finding one of these pieces without actually knowing what it is, which they make a joke on it. So he loses his like, is it Gintama or Gintama? I can't remember. I know it's a joke in Japanese because they use the same joke in One Piece at some point. But yeah, he loses his golden balls. And the pink-haired girl, Ira, ends up finding one, and because of it, she can see, like, spiritual abilities and yokai, and she ends up being stalked by a Selkie. And in the end, like, that's probably the most emotional episode, is the dealing with the Selkie. I'm not going to go into detail with that. I really do want people to watch that and understand, like, why it's so meaningful. And they did an absolutely spectacular job. The end of the season, we end up getting Gigi, who is Momo's first crush and a complete goober. I love Gigi. We also end up finding out, like, about the different aliens. So we have the aliens that kidnapped Momo, and, like, they want to reproduce. And then we have a shrimp, a mantis shrimp alien whose child has to have blood transfusions, like, constantly, or he'll die. And so he was trying to get money. And then come to find out that the reason that aliens abduct cows is because, like, a lot of aliens, apparently that's actually their blood is cow's milk. So yeah, that. And then we have Turbo Granny. You have the Loch Ness Monster. You have if, like, the debate on whether a Kappa is just a yokai or if it is actually an alien. And so you have a bunch of stuff. So you actually have, like, American lore in there too. I think it's in, like, episode 2 that they do an American, like, cryptid. But the ridiculousness is kind of what ends up making the show what it is. And the animation. So the first thing that grabbed my attention, like I always look for like stuff on YouTube whenever it's first coming out, because Crunchyroll likes to release the OPs before the show comes out. And they did that with Otonoke. And so that's how I found out about Creepy Nuts, actually. I was in the process of going to watch Mashal season 2, so I hadn't gotten around to that yet when I watched Dandadan. And that opening slaps. They also have their own music video for it. If you haven't seen it, it's spectacular. You should go watch it. Pause this video and go watch Otonoke. And if it wasn't for like discovering Creepy Nuts, then I actually wouldn't have discovered Call of the Night, which is a manga completely based like on the author's feelings for the song Call of the Night by Creepy Nuts. Creepy Nuts is actually like in that anime and manga. So like yeah. But the opening visuals for the original season were just absolutely superb. And so that kind of got me into it at first. And then it's made by Science Saru. So I've watched Devilman Crybaby. It's obviously rather short. I love the animation. I also watched The Night is Long, Walk On Girl, which I adored the animation too. I liked the weird, like, surreal visuals sometimes that they had, and just the silly animations for how they did some stuff. So Science Saru, I feel like, was an absolutely spectacular choice for this anime. I'm not sure if anyone else could have done this justice. Because, like, Science Saru has a tendency to not have consistency with their art. All of their animes are kind of all over the place. If you've seen Devilman Crybaby, you know what I mean, especially the running scenes. You can find those, like, you can literally look up GIFs of that if you don't know what I'm talking about. Just do Devilman Crybaby run. And it's the silliest thing, and I adore it. But I've watched a review of the opening, and like the person explained about like how Science Saru put bits and pieces of their previous work, and then you have like references to Kamen Rider, and the anime itself also has a lot of like references to other anime, different things. And I feel like that's kind of fun, just like seeing what all you can find. Because like there are some things that only some people are gonna get. I'll use an example from a different anime really quick, but I'm watching the Summer Hikaru Died, and one of the characters ended up listening to a song from AKB 0048. I don't know anyone else besides like a friend I no longer talk to who has even heard of that anime, because it's literally just like a corporate anime to bill AKB48. I want to say some of their like new girls were actually the voices for the characters in Japanese. Arikata, 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 yes! But like things like that I always enjoy. Like even if I don't understand the reference, I like it because then I can go and look up the stuff after I've seen it, and I can be like, oh, that sounds neat. Maybe I should give that a try. And that's how I found like other anime like in the past. And it's neat to see an anime that's actually like a fully funded shonen production. one of the bigger name shonen productions that has something like that, because I've only ever seen it in like parodies. Like the main one I can think of that has done like non-stop references is Naruto. I don't even know how many people know what Naruto is. I will probably end up having to do a video on that eventually. But I like that. I like that the author puts stuff like that in there. And it's not just like stuff from like other big name shonen series. And again, with the animation being as erratic as it is, I've read some of the manga, and the art is also kind of a little all over the place sometimes. And I feel like if you gave that to a company like Ufotable, it would be too consistent. Which isn't bad for stuff like Fate Zero and like Demon Slayer, where the art in the manga is super consistent, and you need you want the like super visuals for the Sakuga. Instead, like Science Saru has a tendency to completely give up on the human form and concept whenever they're doing Sakuga. Like, it doesn't need to look right, it needs to look cool. That is how I see Dandadan's fights. And they are absolutely spectacular. You have Okarun, who is a like physical character because of Turbo Granny's powers. So he has like big speed, and like he ends up working on his strength himself to try and help Momo. But you have Momo, who has like psychic powers. So like, do you want the psychic powers to just always look the same? Like whenever Demon Slayer has its fights, it's always like if Tanjiro is using water, then it's always like water themed. It's always like it looks like flowing water, and that's not a bad thing for that show. But whenever you're thinking like a mental power, is it going to always be the same? Is it always going to be the same size? Is it always going to have to be like 2 hands, 1 hand, bubbles? Like, with Science Saru being the way they are and not really caring about that kind of stuff, it feels like they're open to doing whatever they want with that. And since it is a mental power, doesn't it make sense that like having an imagination and just trying to figure out, well, how should this look, kind of be the point? And some people aren't always going to agree with that, because like I know there's a bunch of people that get upset whenever it doesn't match the manga, like frame for frame. I have seen so many people complain about that with One Piece lately, because they're like, why is the fan art better than the actual anime? This looks closer to the manga. It does. I don't care. Let them cook. Let them do what they feel like they need to do, and just be happy you get to see it, and enjoy it for what it is. Enjoy the fact that this specific anime production got some creative freedom and like is talking with the mangaka and can do that, and we're just here for the ride. Like, just appreciate the art. And Science Saru cooks something like big when it comes to this show. Like, I legitimately can't think of a single like action instance that I did not like in Dandadan. And like, the fights aren't super dragged out. I want to say the Selkie fight was probably the most dragged out fight for like one-on-one. and I think it was like 2 episodes. And it made sense because it wasn't just the fight. It was more than that. It was like a flashback sequence and like understanding the character motives and Turbo Granny stealing Momo's friend's phone. I love that Turbo Granny just stole a phone so she could look up stuff on the internet. It's so great. And then she has to have it like really close to her face because she's a granny. It's little details like that that are just absolutely amazing to me. I watched it in the dub, obviously, because it's easier for me. I have ADHD, something awful sometimes, and I can't just watch a show. I need to be doing something else, like, some of the time. And so the dub, like, super helps. And the fact that Turbo Granny is voiced by none other than the voice of Rita Repulsa and Laharl from Disgaea. Rita Repulsa from Power Rangers. I always forget that not everyone's seen the original Power Rangers now. Why haven't you watched the original Power Rangers? Go watch it after this video. It's much longer than this video. But, like, she does an absolutely amazing job. Honestly, I think all of the voice cast are spectacular. I feel like the voice direction was very correct in the way that... So lines obviously have to be changed to some extent for any anime. I don't feel like they changed too much, and I feel like the changes that they made like sense. I feel like all changes fit the characters, and that all the voices like suit the persona of the character as they are being portrayed. Momo has like a voice that, while it's kind of commanding, but at the same time, like, it's still very teen, like kind of a punk ass teen. Okarun has like the kind of high nerdy voice type thing going on, and it's wonderful. Ira has like two sides to herself. So she has the side that is in love with Okarun, even though it's very obvious Okarun has a thing for Momo. Ira's not going to give up. But she tries to make herself be like this super sweet, innocent character, and the higher pitched voice kind of fits that. Oh no. Am I in this picture? Damn. I feel like I called myself out. I'll just see myself out. Oh, wait, I have to finish this review. And then you have Gigi. Gigi is a goof. He can be serious. It's just kind of few and far between. And his voice is great. If you didn't know, he's voiced by the same person as the main character from Solo Leveling. I still have to catch up on Solo Leveling. I'm not sorry about that. I've had other stuff to watch that I absolutely needed to watch. I will get around to it. I promise. I will most likely do a review on it. I think that's another thing that I like about this show compared to some shonen. A lot of shonen have become like self-inserts. Not specifically just isekai, but isekai is really bad about it. This is not a self-insert. Like, you can see bits of yourself in any of these characters, I'm sure. Like, I 100% have seen bits of myself in both Momo and Okarun, and some of Ira. and even Psycho. And sometimes even Turbo Granny. Like, I definitely felt Turbo Granny when it came to like protecting people. I've tried to do that for my friends as long as I can think of. I've done it to the point that like I stood up for them, and then they got mad because of how angry I was on their behalf, because they weren't that angry. and they felt like I overdid it. And like I understand that. But I'm very protective of the people that I feel close to. And I feel like that's kind of the case for a lot of these characters. They have self-motivation more than outside motivation. I can't really say the power of friendship is like really their power. Like I said, Okarun's main thing is protecting Momo. Like I'm sure that if like he has helped Ira, but the thing is that Momo is also in danger at that time. So like in the end, it's more about Momo. That's his biggest thing is wanting to help and protect her. Momo wants to get stronger and learn to control her powers. She wants to help Okarun with like that, help him be able to find all the missing bits and bobs. I showed you my bobs. Reply. I mean, it's not wrong. We see Momo in her underwear in the first episode. But like even like Ira, her whole thing whenever she ends up being able to use yokai powers is protecting Okarun and herself. Like that's it. She couldn't give less of a fuck about Momo, because Momo's her rival. Like that's pretty much the way that she's always going to see her, it seems. But like Gigi is her friend, is Momo's friend. And so like she agrees to help him by the end of season 1. After his parents end up in the hospital and they have to go to like his house, and we don't get too far into that before we get into season 2. We do end up seeing Gigi has feelings for Momo. He pulls the childhood friend card on Okarun, and Okarun doesn't want to like him because Okarun likes Momo and he sees Gigi as a rival because Gigi was her first crush, and he found out about that through Momo's grandmother. And so like he doesn't want to like Gigi, but Gigi is just such a fun little bubble that he can't help but like him. But then they end up in like a pissing contest on, well, she'd like me more because I've gotten farther because and it's kind of funny because it's like you see the development there. It's not like immediate. It's not like, oh, I looked at you, we're friends now. There has to actually be some growth. And it feels like all of the characters in this actually have some growing that happens. And that makes sense. They're teenagers. They're still learning about the world. Like, the Psycho shits on them all the time because she knows about the world. But, like, she cares about them. She tries to take care of all of them. And sometimes she can't. And, like, it makes sense. She wants to see all of them become stronger. Because she wants them to be able to handle anything. Like, when she's not there, or she's not able to protect them, or help them, or anything. And, like, I know my grandparents were very similar to that, and like teaching me stuff and making sure I knew things so that I didn't end up in a situation where someone could hurt me. But in the end, that's part of like all of that is just to say I absolutely adore this show. I really hope that we get like the full series, and it seems like we will since it's still doing so well. And I hope they continue to have the same voice cast. I do know that previously there have been issues with voice actors not getting compensated correctly. And I don't want that for any of these people. They deserve literally like all the money. They do a spectacular job of bringing these characters to life. And as someone that is trying to get into that field, or at least hoping to eventually be able to work towards something like that, it always amazes me whenever like I can hear them and be like, oh, yeah, that's from this, because they bring life to that character, the way they say it and the way that the emotions are put into it, all like just frame a specific like personality. And some voice actors can't do that. Like some voice actors have like one tone that they kind of do, and I can't watch them if I've seen them as like a main character. But all of these voice actors I have seen in other things, or heard in other things, I should say, and they have all sounded different because the character is different. They're not playing the same character. There are some exceptions. Obviously, there are people that are typecast, but regardless, the opening and ending to Dandadan are spectacular, both season 1 and 2. The story is amazing. Like I said, I have read some of the manga. I'm a little ahead of where the anime is currently for season 2. I still think it's fantastic. I hope that we at least get all of the arc that we are currently in soon, while we wait for some other anime to finish. And then I just hope that they don't make a mistake and change like the studio. I feel like if any other studio gets this, it won't be as good. It's gonna be the stuff that happened with Seven Deadly Sins all over again. And I know none of us want that for this show. I know so many people that adore this show. I know so many people that don't watch it for the shonen. They watch it for the romance, the development, and just the character interactions. I know some people that only watch it because it's a shonen and it has amazing fights and like the art. So if nothing else, while I have spoiled bits and pieces of season 1, obviously, I still suggest going to watch it so that you can form your own opinion on it, and you can start watching season 2, hopefully. And hopefully we'll get another season after this. And I can come back, and I can tell you, like, when the arc's finished, how I feel again. And maybe some of you can come back, and maybe you'll have a different opinion. So that's all I have to say on Dandadan today. We'll be back next week. I'm going to be discussing Sailor Moon. But thank you for coming. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you next time. Bye bye!